Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Speak to English podcast. I'm your host, Sohil. In today's episode, we're talking about something that millions of learners struggle with, learning English. Why do many people study English for years but still feel afraid to speak? Is grammar the real problem? Or is it fear, confidence, and practice? To discuss this, we have a very special guest with us today. He is Mr. Daniel Rahman, a spoken English trainer and communication coach. We'll talk about his own English learning journey, his struggles, his funny mistakes, and how English changed his personal and professional life. If you're learning English and want to speak more confidently, this episode is for you. So, let's get started. Mr. Daniel Rahman, welcome to Speak To. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Sohel. I'm really happy to be here. And honestly, I love this topic because learning English is not just about language. It's about confidence, opportunity, and personal growth. So, yes, I'm excited to share my story today.
Question 1. Daniel, before we started recording, we were having a casual conversation, and you said something that really caught my attention. You mentioned that there was a time when you were actually afraid to speak English. Honestly, I was a little surprised, because today you teach thousands of students to speak English confidently. So, let's start from the beginning. Could you tell us a little about yourself, and how did your English learning journey actually begin?
That's a wonderful question, Sohel. And honestly, I'm glad you asked this first, because many people think English teachers were born speaking fluent English, but that's definitely not my story. I grew up in an ordinary Bangladeshi family where English was just another school subject. Like many students, I memorized grammar rules, completed exercises, and prepared for exams. But when someone suddenly asked me a simple question in English, I froze. I knew the answer in my mind, but I couldn't express it. That was one of the most frustrating feelings I've ever experienced. I still remember one day at university. A teacher asked me a very simple question in English. I understood every single word, but I couldn't answer. After class, I kept thinking, why can I understand English but not speak it? That question changed my life. From that day, I stopped studying English only to pass exams. I started learning English to communicate with people. And honestly, that small change completely changed my journey.
Wow, that's actually very inspiring. And I think many people watching this podcast have experienced exactly the same thing. They understand English, they know grammar, but when it's time to speak, everything suddenly disappears. Question 2. Let me ask you something personally, Daniel. At that moment, did you ever feel that English simply wasn't for you? Or did you always believe that one day you'd become fluent?
To be honest, yes, there were several moments when I thought, maybe English isn't for me. I compared myself with people who spoke English fluently, and honestly, that made me feel even worse. Sometimes I'd watch English interviews on YouTube and think, how do they speak so naturally? Meanwhile, I couldn't even introduce myself confidently. There was a time when I avoided speaking English completely because I was afraid of making mistakes. But one day, I asked myself a simple question. If I never speak, how will I ever improve? That's when I made a promise to myself. I would make mistakes. I would feel embarrassed, but I would never stop practicing. Looking back now, I think making mistakes was actually the best teacher I ever had.
I really love that mindset. And honestly, I think that's where most English learners get stuck. They're not afraid of English, they're afraid of making mistakes. And once that fear takes over, they stop speaking completely. Let me ask you something a little funny. Be honest, Daniel. Did you ever stand in front of a mirror and practice English by yourself? I think almost every English learner has tried that at least once.
Oh yes, more times than I'd like to admit. Sometimes I'd imagine I was giving a speech. Other times, I pretended I was being interviewed for my dream job. If someone had secretly watched me back then, they probably would have thought I was talking to myself. But you know what? Those little practice sessions helped me become more confident. Because before speaking confidently in front of others, I first had to become comfortable speaking to myself.
That's actually
Question
so
3.
relatable. I think many viewers are smiling right now because they've done exactly the same thing. And the interesting part is, it really works. Sometimes the simplest methods give us the biggest results. Now, Daniel, this brings me to another important question. Many students spend years memorizing grammar rules, but they still struggle to speak confidently. Question 3. What do you think is the biggest mistake English learners make?
That's probably the biggest misconception about learning English. Many people believe that grammar is the first thing they must master. But honestly, I don't completely agree. Please don't get me wrong. Grammar is important, but grammar is a tool, not the destination. When children learn their first language, they don't study grammar books first. They listen, they imitate, they make mistakes, and gradually, they become fluent. I believe English learners should follow a similar process. Listen more, speak more, make mistakes, then improve your grammar along the way. That's exactly what worked for me. I didn't become confident because I memorized grammar rules. I became confident because I started using English every single day.
Wow, I think many viewers might be surprised by that answer. Because from childhood, we've been told, first finish grammar, then start speaking. But you're saying the opposite. That's really interesting. Let me ask you something. If someone has only 30 minutes a day, how should they use that time to improve their spoken English?
That's a practical question, Sohel. And honestly, 30 minutes is more than enough if you use it wisely. I'd spend the first 10 minutes listening to English. It could be a podcast, a short interview, or even a YouTube video. The next 10 minutes, I'd repeat what I heard. Not silently, I'd speak out loud. And for the final 10 minutes, I'd talk to myself in English, describe my day, share my opinion, or answer simple questions. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is consistency. If you do this every day, even for just 30 minutes, you'll notice a big difference within a few months.
I really like how simple you've made it. No expensive course, no complicated routine, just 30 focused minutes every day. I think that's something almost everyone can follow. And Daniel, this brings me to another question. Many learners understand English quite well. They can read books, watch movies, and even understand podcasts. But when it's time to speak, they suddenly become silent. Why does that happen? Question 4.
That's actually one of the most common problems. And the interesting part is, it's usually not an English problem. It's a confidence problem. Many learners know enough vocabulary. They understand grammar. They even know what they want to say. But just before speaking, a voice inside their head says, "What if I make a mistake? What if people laugh at me? What if my pronunciation isn't good enough?" And that's where they stop themselves. I always tell my students, people don't laugh because your English isn't perfect. They appreciate the fact that you're trying. The more you speak, the more confident you become. Confidence doesn't come first. Confidence comes after practice.
Wow, that sentence really caught my attention. Confidence doesn't come first. Confidence comes after practice. I think that's something every English learner should remember. Actually, Daniel, I'd love to hear a real story. Has any of your students completely changed after following your advice?
Yes. There's one student I'll never forget. His name was Fahim. When he first joined my class, he barely spoke a single sentence in English. Whenever I asked him a question, he would smile, look down, and say, "Sir, I know the answer, but I can't say it." I told him, "Don't worry about mistakes, just speak." For the first few weeks, he made lots of mistakes. Sometimes he even laughed at himself, but he never stopped. 6 months later, the same student gave a 5-minute presentation in English in front of more than 50 people. After the presentation, he came to me and said, "Sir, today I wasn't afraid anymore." Honestly, that moment made me happier than any certificate I've ever received. Because teaching English isn't just about language, it's about changing people's confidence.
That's such a beautiful story. And honestly, I got goosebumps listening to that. I think many viewers are seeing themselves in Fahim's journey right now. Maybe they're also thinking, I know English, but I'm afraid to speak. If Fahim could overcome that fear, I'm sure they can too. Now, Daniel, before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you one final question. If someone starts learning English today, what are the 3 most important things they should always remember? Question 5.
I love this question, Sohel, because if I had to start my English journey all over again, these are exactly the 3 things I'd follow. First, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Every fluent speaker you admire today was once a beginner. The only difference is they didn't stop. Second, practice a little every single day. You don't need 5 hours. Even 30 minutes of focused practice can completely change your English over time. Consistency always beats intensity. And finally, use English in real life. Don't learn English only from books. Use it while thinking. Use it while texting. Use it while talking to yourself. The more English becomes a part of your daily life, the faster you'll improve. That's exactly what helped me. And honestly, I still learn something new every day because learning never really ends.
I absolutely love those 3 points. Simple, practical, and something anyone can start doing today. Daniel, before we finish, I'd like to ask you one last personal question. Imagine, someone is watching this podcast right now. They've been trying to learn English for years. They've watched hundreds of videos. They've bought courses. But today, they feel like giving up. If you could speak directly to that person, what would you say?
I'd simply say, please don't quit. Learning English is not a race. It's a journey. Stop comparing yourself with people who started years before you. Instead, compare yourself with who you were yesterday. Every new word you learn, every sentence you speak, every mistake you correct is a step forward. One day, you'll look back and realize that all those small efforts made a huge difference. And remember this, English is not just another subject. It's a skill that can open doors, build confidence, create opportunities, and connect you with people all around the world. So keep learning, keep speaking, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself.
Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today. This wasn't just a conversation about learning English. It was a conversation about confidence, growth, and believing in yourself. I genuinely enjoyed every minute of today's discussion, and I'm sure our viewers did too. If today's podcast inspired you, let us know in the comments. What's the biggest challenge you face while learning English? We'll read your comments, and maybe your question will be featured in one of our future podcast episodes. Don't forget to like this video, share it with a friend who's learning English, and subscribe to Speak to Two for more real-life English podcasts, practical conversations, and inspiring stories. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sohil, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep learning, keep speaking, and keep growing. Goodbye.